What's going on, everyone? Hope you're doing well. Today, I have a short presentation for you about Mr. Dussel or Mr. Dussel. And I just got, as we were watching the movie, I watch it like four times. So by the second or third time, it's, maybe not as exciting as the first time. So I was doing a little research yesterday on Mr. Dussel, found out his real name is, got it right here, Fritz Pfeffer was his real name. And apparently he was a pretty good guy. But of course, everything we get to know about him is from Anne's point of view. So you can imagine he shows up later. It's her father's place. He's a single guy. She was sharing a room with her sister. We saw that in the movie where she's like, I'm not a child. Why is it okay that I can be in a room with him, but you can't? Margot was only a couple of years older. So right from the beginning, there was tension between her and Mr. Dussel, which we know, or Fritz Pfeffer. But yeah, he was a dentist. And we'll later find out, like, that's one reason why he was brought into the annex. Another reason was because he was just a single guy. They only had room for one more person, and we heard that in both the play and the movie. And most of the information I got was from Wikipedia, which is not the best. If you're doing a research paper, you should not use Wikipedia, but I did here. And I just thought it would be interesting to kind of get a different point of view on Mr. Dussel, because Anne is definitely going to be biased. She's not going to probably give us the real story. So I thought if I just presented what other people thought about Mr. Pfeffer, it would be a little bit better. But here's the thing, also with Otto too, but he was born in Germany, escaped from Germany when it looked like things were going south for people who were Jewish, more restrictions. So they thought, if we could leave a country where the Nazis controlled for a country that they don't control, like the Netherlands, at least we'll be able to live our life a little better. The Franks did the same, if you remember. And obviously it didn't turn out that well for him. But Otto Frank served in the German army during World War I, and so did Mr. Dussel. So I don't think they knew each other before, but. And then he was also married. So remember, he is going to die in 44 or 45, but he's married in 1926. And he has a son in 1927. So a little bit more about his son. But I did a little digging on his first wife. Well, he only has one wife. But if you remember, in the play and in the movie, actually in the movie, he shows Anne a picture of his fiance. They never did get married. There will be a ceremony for the two of them, Charlotte and Fritz, posthumously. So after his death, we will learn that word posthumously, I think tomorrow, but it means after death. So some people might be awarded a medal. If they're fighting in a war, they might be awarded that medal posthumously because, they died. But they are going to be married posthumously. So even though Mr. Pfeffer, Mr. Dussel, is not going to make it out of the Holocaust, his fiance is going to want to have like a service just to show that they were married. So that's a picture of him. Did not want to show that yet, but I mean it's on the Wikipedia page. But apparently, according to some people, he was a very good looking guy. And he's 55. So that's why there's like such a big age difference. Like he's even older than Mr. Frank. He's in his 50s. I believe Otto was in his 50s as well. They might have been about the same age. So he was about the same age as Otto. All right, let me pull this up because I do have a picture of his first wife, which is what we were talking about. And that is her. She is the woman that he married in 1926, Vera. And unfortunately, like so many people, she is also going to die in Auschwitz. So it's sad. Almost all the people that you research who were Jewish and living in the vicinity of Germany, they are going to meet pretty much the same fate, die in some sort of concentration camp. Auschwitz was the biggest. So he divorced this woman, Vera, in 1932. And for some reason, usually I don't know why this happened, but usually the woman is awarded custody. But for whatever reason, Mr. Dussel gets custody of his son. His son is named Werner. I looked it up. We can share this with you here. So I found this website called German Names, and they'll actually pronounce it for you. So this is the proper German way to pronounce Mr. Dussel's son's name.
Werner.
Very German. So he was awarded custody of his son, but realizing things weren't going so well for Jews in Germany, he is eventually going to find another place for his son. But Mr. Dussel's son lived with him until this place called Kristallnacht. In English, it's Crystal Night or Night of Broken Glass. And this is in 1938. And this is the first time that people knew things were going really wrong for people who were Jewish. There's a picture of it's not Otto and it's not Mr. Dussel, but that is what possible German troops might have looked like in World War I. But during Kristallnacht or Night of Broken Glass in 1938, I have some statistics here for you that I got from Wikipedia. During the Night of Broken Glass on November 9th into the 10th, 1938, 30,000 Jewish men were arrested. 7,000 Jewish businesses were destroyed. This happened in parts of Germany, parts of Austria. And it was a big wake-up call to a lot of people who were Jewish, is like, things are going badly here. Like, before, a lot of people were probably denying, like, oh, I can't sit on this park bench, or my kids can't go to this school anymore. But this was like almost like war, right? Like 30,000 Jewish men rounded up, sent away. Businesses were just destroyed. So what Mr. Dussel does is that he has a brother living in living in England. So he asks his brother, hey, I don't like the way things are going here. Do you mind if your nephew comes to stay with you? And that's what happens to Werner, for a while at least. So Mr. Dussel sent his son to England in order to live with Mr. Dussel's brother. Okay. So next, Werner. Unfortunately, his uncle, Fritz's brother, is going to die in 1945. So he's living in England. He's not going to be in a camp. He died from a stroke, I believe. So Werner is going to eventually make it to the United States. Not the last time we'll hear about him, because he is going to have some things to say about Anne Frank's diary. And we've talked about this a little bit already, but one reason the Franks allowed Mr. Dussel to stay with them is that because he had a medical degree. So if you remember early on, Margot gets pretty sick. I don't know if that influenced their decision to bring in somebody else, but Mr. Dussel was looking for a place. He knew Miep Geiss. Miep Geiss asked Otto, hey, can he stay with you? And that's how it happened. All right, so let's talk a little bit about his religious beliefs, because there's a part in the movie where Anne singles out Mr. Dussel, and she says, displaced Jews and other folks, or something like that. So I thought, wow, maybe Mr. Dussel isn't really all that Jewish at all. Maybe he didn't practice. Maybe he didn't go to synagogue. Well, the opposite was true. If you look down there, he was Orthodox. And when you hear that term Orthodox, it means very strict. So he was very religious, way more than anybody else in the annex. Anne was, more liberal in her beliefs. She didn't believe that, you know, a woman's place was in the kitchen or whatever. Like she was very, very liberal. She wanted to have a career. And at this time in the 40s, a lot of women were just like, hey, maybe I can find a great husband. But it seems like through Anne's diary, like that wasn't her main goal. It was like to have a profession, to be a journalist. So that didn't help them get along. And of course, the desk was a struggle. She thought her work was very important. And I guess history is going to prove her right that I don't believe many people are reading, unfortunately, Mr. Dussel's work. But of course, millions of people each year are going to be reading Anne's work, even to this day. All right, so let's get into a little bit of the movie talks about it a little bit. There's a scene where Miep and Mr. Dussel are at the bottom of the stairs, and he is handing Miep a letter. It's like, hey, make sure she gets this. So there was this exchange, like he was still able to communicate with his fiancee Charlotte because of Miep. So, it seems like they were never discovered. He never mentioned where they were staying, but she just kind of knew, Charlotte knew that he was safe. All right, so he was engaged during his time in the annex. Miep would take letters back and forth. Now let's talk about wrapping this thing up here. Let's talk about how other people thought Mr. Dussel was, or Mr. Pfeffer. Okay, so Miep is going to write a memoir after this whole ordeal. And Miep wrote in a memoir and said, the photos of Dr. Pfeffer reveal the handsome, cultured man I knew. So if anybody wants to take another look, I think I can find, and you can judge for yourself. Was he a handsome man? I don't know. You be the judge. But Miep thought that he was rather handsome. That is a plaque kind of commemorating Mr. Dussel after his death. So he was a cultured man. He did have a degree in medicine, rather than the buffoon that Anne so unkindly described in her diary. So Miep took a little offense, like he wasn't quite that bad. And of course, so much plays into that about point of view. So from Anne's point of view, he was an old man, taking up her room. And then somebody like Miep, maybe she's a little bit more unbiased. She said, no, he was gave him some props, saying, hey, good looking man, but he was also very cultured, not like that guy. And also Mr. Dussel and his wife, Charlotte. So Charlotte is, remember I talked about how they got married after his death posthumously. They both spoke out and said, no, he was not like that at all. He wasn't mean. But you can imagine staying in an annex, like we've said before, staying in an annex, small, cramped, you want to get out. People are going to get on each other's nerves. So I just want to make this little thing to kind of like defend Mr. Pfeffer. And maybe he wasn't as bad as Anne. And hey, how about this? What if like Mr. Pfeffer, Mr. Dussel, what if he wrote a memoir? What if he was the one to survive? You can imagine Anne, I think, would get on a lot of people's nerves. She wanted to be an actress. There was that scene where she's starting to read to welcome him. Remember, like displaced Jews and whatever. And he starts clapping, and Miss Van Dam said, no, she's not done. So she was probably used to performing. She did in the play put a mop in Mr. Dussel's bed. In the movie, it was something else. And Peter was helping her, so they changed that a little bit. But depends on whose point of view you are hearing the story from. So I think I just wanted to defend Mr. Pfeffer, or Mr. Dussel. All right, let's get into the movie. Little Cries Cross.